Greetings. Look at that. To me, that's kind of weird. Looks like I don't have enough fingers. Not sure why. That's always been a thing. It's strange. Anyway, we're going to continue as if there were no span of time between my last video and this. We're just going to do that. Recently, on the 24th of March, Black Friday released a video entitled Why I Don't Make Goth Discussion Videos. And I first want to start by saying that I don't hold any of her feelings or ideas on the topic wrong, or expect or want her to change her stance on any of it. 9 times out of 10, if I'm responding to a video, I'm doing so to give a different perspective to someone's audience, rather than replying directly to that content creator. Largely, her video was about why she doesn't make these types of videos, and not so much suggesting that others should follow suit, just an explanation. And I think that's great. There were a couple things, however, that I wanted to comment on in regards to it. She stated essentially that she doesn't want to fight about these types of topics. What is goth, and what can be considered goth, whether or not you are goth when you do this thing or listen to that thing or wear this thing. The goth culture has always been introspective, and I don't find any value in slowing or stopping that in any way. It's one of the things that differentiates us from Mother Punk. While both can be said to embrace emotion, punk is generally more about taking action or reacting to things, usually against concepts or social manifestations. Whereas goth has always been a little bit more about individual thought, one's own musings in one's head. She also stated that she feels that it demystifies what goth is. And if you have a channel with tens or hundreds of thousands of people following it, many of whom probably are not goth, then yes, I actually wholeheartedly agree. That's why I've stated once or twice that I consider my own channel to be kind of a goth-only venue. I can't stop non-goths from subscribing, but if they do so, they need to understand that I'm not speaking to them, and I'm not really all that interested in their input, precisely because they're not goth, and because I discuss things specifically about the culture. And doing this, I feel, helps to mitigate the demystification. Also, one of my favorite pastimes with goth friends back in the day was actually talking about these kinds of things. It was talking about what it means to be goth, whether or not someone is, whether or not a band and or their music can be considered goth, and expressing all that introspection and enjoying philosophical concepts about it. Although, if one thinks as goth as only fashion or as only a musical trend, then there's not nearly as much philosophy that can be considered about it. Ultimately, though, I see it as a matter of trading popularity for intellectualization. And I see that divide as kind of a necessary thing. I don't want extremely popular goths on YouTube talking about what defines the culture. I do believe that mystifies goth. One of the things I think was the most detrimental to the culture as a whole was in the 90s, when you had these goths going on Donahue and whatever other talk shows saying, oh, I'm just a normal person, I want love and acceptance like everybody else, it's really not a big thing. That I think was the worst possible time for something like that to have happened, because it did demystify Goth. Yes, there were people who were scared of the culture. I say fine, let them be scared. That the idea that scares them doesn't bother me. Of course, I don't want people brutally beaten or murdered because they are Goth, and those things did happen. Those are awful, awful incidences. But I wouldn't want to trade one for the other. All of this suggests to me that there's an explanation that needs to be made about how argumentation works. I make no claims of ultimate or perfect altruism. Sometimes I like to leave the filters off and just track-tosh everything I don't like. It happens. But here on my channel, I generally try to keep things on a little bit more of an intellectual level. When I make a statement like pastel is enough its own thing, that it doesn't need to add Goth to it, grasping desperately for a sense of legitimacy, that is opening a dialogue. It's not me laying down the Goth law condemning everyone who's ever worn seafoam green. It's not. It's me saying we're going to have a discussion, and it will be with this statement as a premise, as an opening argument. Now, that premise may be how I truly feel about the topic, but not necessarily. And it doesn't matter whether I believe it or not. What matters is that the conversation that stems from the dialogue taking place. I believe lack of understanding of conversation and how those dialogues take place is the cause for a lot of the friction within the culture perceived on the internet. When you're person to person, it's a little bit easier to pick up on various physiological and social cues that we give to one another. And sometimes people are just dicks, but sometimes you can tell a lot easier in face-to-face interactions that it is just a topic, and we're not condemning out of hand anything. So just a few ideas surrounding Black Friday's video. And that's all for now. Thank you.